Listen up, everyone. It's late January 2026 right now, and Donald Trump's second term is barely a year old, but the numbers are already screaming trouble. The latest Pew Research poll just dropped, and it's brutal. Only 37% of Americans approve of the job he's doing, while 61% straight up disapprove. That's a net disapproval of minus 24 points, the worst mark we've seen so far in this administration. Cross-check that with Reuters Ipsos from just days ago. 38% approve, 59% disapprove, tying the lowest point of his entire second term. The Economist tracker is sitting at net minus 18 with 38% approval. Even Fox News, which usually gives him the friendliest numbers, has him at 44% approve and 56% disapprove. Nate Silver's Silver Bulletin average, it started the term at plus 11.7 net approval. Now it's minus 14.1. That's a 26-point collapse in roughly 12 months. Dramatic pause. And here's the part that should make every viewer sit up straight. This isn't coming out of nowhere. We're talking about bystander videos from Minneapolis showing federal agents shooting and killing two U.S. citizens, Renee Nicole Good on January 7th and Alex Preddy on January 24th, videos that directly contradict the official stories being told by ICE and Border Patrol. Thousands of people are marching in sub-zero temperatures chanting "ICE out." Protests are spreading to Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston. Tariffs that were supposed to bring manufacturing back are instead pushing gas prices, grocery bills, and car parts higher. Foreign policy moves demanding to buy Greenland, posting that he's the acting president of Venezuela, threatening NATO allies, are making headlines for all the wrong reasons. And across multiple surveys, anywhere from 58% to 71% of Americans say the country feels completely out of control. Intense pause. If you think this is just another temporary dip or fake news spin, you need to hear the full picture. Over the next 40-plus minutes, I'm going to walk you through every major poll number, the raw data behind them, the human stories that are driving the outrage, the economic fallout people are feeling in their wallets, the foreign policy chaos, and exactly what this slide could mean for the 2026 midterms and the rest of Trump's presidency. This is not clickbait. This is the data and the reality colliding right now. So stay locked in. Part 1 is just getting started. Before we dive into the individual surveys, let's be very clear why approval ratings aren't just another number on a screen. When a president's approval drops below 40% this consistently and this early in a second non-consecutive term, history shows it becomes extremely difficult to recover momentum. Look at George W. Bush after Katrina and the financial crisis buildup. He never really climbed back above water. Barack Obama's second term had moments below 45%, but never sustained drops like this. Trump's first term bottomed out around 33-35% during impeachment and COVID peaks. Now we're seeing 37-38% in multiple high-quality polls, less than 14 months into term 2. That is not normal. That is a warning light flashing red across the dashboard. When independents, the true swing voters, start turning away in large numbers, when even some soft Republicans begin to waver on key signature issues like immigration and the economy, the political math changes fast. Midterms are less than 10 months away. House and Senate control could flip if this trend holds or accelerates. And the triggers right now are not abstract policy debates. They are concrete, emotional, visible events. Videos of shootings, rising prices at the pump and the supermarket, allies publicly ridiculing U.S. demands. That combination of visible chaos and pocketbook pain is lethal for approval numbers. So when Pew says 50% of Americans think the administration's actions are worse than they expected versus only 21% saying better, when Reuters finds 58% believe the ICE crackdown has gone too far, when YouGov shows confidence in ICE itself dropping sharply after the Minneapolis incidents, that is not noise, that is signal, loud, clear signal. Let's start with the Pew poll because it is one of the gold standards. Large sample, strong methodology, transparent weighting. Pew interviewed 8,412 U.S. adults online and by phone between January 20 and January 26, 2026. Margin of error is plus or minus 1.4 percentage points. Headline number: 37% approve of the way Donald Trump is handling his job as president, 61% disapprove. That net minus 24 is the lowest Pew has recorded for him in this term so far. Party breakdown shows the usual polarization, but also the cracks. Republicans approve at 73%, down from 78-80% in late 2025. Independents are way underwater, and among Democrats, disapproval is near universal at 92%. Age and education splits are telling too. Approval is highest among voters 50 plus without college degrees, still only around 50%. But among under 30s and college-educated voters, it's in the low 20s. Racial demographics show non-white approval slipping further. On policy issues, only 27% of the public say they support most or all of Trump's policies. That's down from 35% right after inauguration. 50% say his actions have been worse than expected. That perception gap is huge. Pew also asked about trust in institutions. Confidence in ICE specifically took a measurable hit in this wave compared to December. When you combine that with the timing, right after the second Minneapolis shooting, it becomes very clear what is moving the needle. Now let's look at Reuters' Ipsos, another high-quality tracker that tends to run a little higher for Trump than Pew but still shows the same direction. Fieldwork January 23 through 25, roughly 1,000 adults, margin around plus or minus 3 points. Result: 38% approve, 59% disapprove, net minus 21, tying the lowest point recorded during this presidency. They broke out immigration specifically. Only 39% approve of Trump's handling of immigration, 53% disapprove. That is a record low for him on his signature issue. 58% told Reuters Ipsos that the current ICE crackdown and deportation efforts have gone too far. That is a massive shift. In earlier waves of the same tracker, majorities or pluralities said the crackdown was about right or not far enough. The change happened in the last 3 to 4 weeks, exactly the window when the Renee Nicole Good shooting video went viral and then the Alex Pretty shooting followed 10 days later. Coincidence? The data says no. When pollsters ask open-ended questions about what's driving disapproval, immigration enforcement violence, rising costs, and general chaos top the list. That is not spin, that is what respondents are volunteering. The Economist YouGov tracker updates almost daily and smooths out noise. As of January 30, 2026, 38% approve, 56% disapprove, net minus 18. That number has been bouncing between minus 16 and minus 20 for the last month, but refuses to climb back into positive or even single-digit negative territory. They also track right direction, wrong track. Only 37% say right direction, 50% wrong track. That's one of the worst gaps since mid-2025. Fox News, January 23, 26, 44% approve, 56% disapprove. Republicans 85% approve overall, MAGA subgroup 97%. But the headline is still underwater, and among independents it's much worse. Fox also asked about economy and immigration, economy approval hovering around 41-42%, immigration around 45% among all voters, but dropping fast post-shootings. When even Fox's numbers are stuck in the mid-40s, that tells you the floor has lowered significantly. Nate Silver's Silver Bulletin is probably the cleanest aggregate right now. As of late January 2026, Trump's net approval average sits at minus 14.1. At the start of Term 2, it was plus 11.7, a 26-point swing downward. Silver notes that issue-level approvals have tanked even harder, immigration net minus 10, economy minus 16.5, inflation worse. He points out that cost of living disapproval is at minus 28.7 in his weighted model. That is an extraordinarily bad place for any incumbent to be heading into an election year. Silver's model also waits for pollster house effects and sample quality. Pew, Reuters, Economist, Fox all pull the average down together. There is no single outlier dragging it. It's broad agreement across methodologies. Across every one of these polls, you see the same theme repeated. A majority of Americans now believe the Trump administration is performing worse than they anticipated. Pew's 50% worse versus 21% better. Reuters' similar open-ended responses. Economists' wrong track majority. When people expected tough but effective governance and instead see videos of citizens being shot by federal agents, prices rising because of trade wars, and foreign leaders mocking U.S. demands on social media, that gap between expectation and reality widens fast. And once that perception sets in, it is very hard to reverse. Approval doesn't just drop, it sticks low until something dramatic changes the narrative. Right now, nothing is changing it in a positive direction. The real danger zone is not the hard MAGA base. That group is still 95-97% locked in. The danger is the soft Republicans, the pure independents, and the low-propensity voters who gave Trump narrow wins in 2024. Pew shows independents at historic lows for Trump. NYT Siena echoes that young voters and non-whites are moving back toward Democrats or at least away from Trump. Low turnout groups that showed up in 2024 are now saying they're less likely to vote or leaning away. That combination, base intact but margins collapsing among swing voters, is exactly what produces big midterm swings. We saw it in 2018, in 2022, in many off-year cycles. When approval is 37-44% overall and underwater by double digits among independents, the math does not favor the president's party. So that's the polling landscape as it stands right now. Consistent, multi-source, deep negative territory. But numbers alone don't tell the full story. People don't disapprove in a vacuum. They disapprove because of events they see, feel, and talk about. In part 2, we are going to zero in on the single biggest trigger right now. The Minneapolis ICE shootings of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy, the bystander videos that contradict official accounts, the protests that are growing in size and intensity, and how those specific incidents have moved public opinion on immigration faster than almost anything else in Trump's second term. That's where the emotional fuel is coming from, and that's what we'll unpack next.